Hi, I'm Sarah Wheeler. This is my name sign. Some people use this name sign or this name sign. There's a lot of different name signs that I have. Anyway, I wanted to talk about emotional intelligence and how we can use the rule of rethinking to think like scientists. I know that a lot of you have we go through life and we have so much information that's all pushed towards us, especially with social media and everything else that we're having to learn out there. And we feel like we have to know so much. And I want you to think for a moment, with all of that information, can we really know everything? It's impossible. We can try, we can learn. And I know for me, I'm a naturally curious person. That's something that I love. So I'm trying to learn all the time. I want to know as much as I can. If something piques my interest, I'll certainly go out and research it and try to look for more information. That's what I've done. I actually learned it from my dad. Just wanted to do a quick nod to him. I'd always say something and he would ask me why. And even to this day, so many years later, that's been a deeply held belief. And also he would think outside of the box, or we'd think of new inventions, and that's something so ingrained in me. So I wanted to start talking about emotional intelligence. And I've been very into it. And there's a lot of aspects of emotional intelligence, particularly because we're in the 21st century and you have to think of all the technology that's out there, all the things that are happening. People are mostly working from home. Some people are in person, but everyone's really socially distanced. And one of the things that we can improve on is developing the skill of emotional intelligence, social intelligence, understanding that when we have new information that's different, not to shut it off. Understanding how to analyze that information that we're getting and seeing if it makes sense with the deeply held beliefs that we have, instead of saying simply, you're wrong and I'm right. So you could certainly take some time to read through the article if you're curious. But there was one thing that I wanted to emphasize and share with you with this article. They gave some tips on how you can rethink some information. So if someone presents some information, it gives you this immediate reaction. You feel like it's bothering you, or you feel defensive, or something's wrong. Most of the time when you get new information, when you get that immediate defensiveness, it's called cognitive dissonance. And what that means is that it doesn't fit with your current schema. You know something, you get this information your whole life, and then all of a sudden someone brings you some different information, and in your mind it must be wrong. And the problem is that sometimes we may grow up in a bubble. We're growing up with the same types of people and the same types of information that's being showed to us constantly. And then maybe someone's from another culture or a different place, or it could be someone who's holding a different view because of their upbringing, and maybe they could live close to you, even in your same city, but maybe their families, their experiences could be vastly different. So the question is, how can I, instead of being resistant, how can I keep an open mind? So this is what the article addresses. Think like a scientist. There's two parts. So you may have that automatically internal reaction. Instead of reacting defensively, you may want to think about, why do I feel so strongly about what I believe? Do I know all of the facts? How might my emotions be influencing what I believe? Might I be remembering something wrong? Maybe I think something's right, but maybe it's not 100% right. Do I believe something because I want that to be true? So it must be? Or is it really a fact? And putting my personal feelings aside, maybe I agree or I disagree, maybe I feel defensive, or maybe I feel angry, but putting that all aside, when they give me some information, can I learn something from it? Maybe it's a different perspective. Maybe it's a different thought. Can I still learn from that other person? It doesn't mean you have to think that they're right all the time. Sometimes reality means you can hold two different spaces where both things can be right at the same time. Or let's say one person is right or wrong. That can happen as well. But the most important thing is to listen to understand. Think about different perspectives. Even in that moment you're feeling a little bit taken back, take the time to listen. You can do your own research after that and try to understand a bigger picture about that topic. So that's the first piece of all of this. Now, this article talks about practicing one sentence. So after you've asked yourself all of those questions, then you can say this one sentence. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm wrong. Because our ego wants to protect us, right? We know everything. We've studied everything. They've told me, I know all of this. I've been through this. I've experienced it all. But my experiences don't mean it's right 100%. My experiences are my experiences. They are. But someone else may have their own experiences that are vastly different. So they may look at my experiences and realize that they're not their experiences. And that's right too. So I may think to myself, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe they're right too. And sometimes I am wrong. So repeating this over and over again helps you realize that, yes, I am human. It is impossible to know everything. There are so many things that happen out in the world that I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to understand. Our defenses, in a way, is our brains learning things so we can protect ourselves, so we can project what's going to happen. And now we are living in a world that's globally connected. So many things are happening, so many nuances with the information that we're getting. It is impossible to know everything about everything. We typically scratch the surface, and what we do now is we see new feeds, we see the header, and those are things that we keep in mind. But how many of us actually read a complete article and take the time to really digest and think it through? It's rare. Do we even have time for that? There's a topic called slow thinking, fast thinking, and I'll talk about that in another video, but it's the idea of pausing and really thinking about one topic at a time, which takes time. Instead of being bombarded with all this information, all we have time to process is just surface information. We might see it. We may be familiar with certain topics, but having an in-depth knowledge of the whole thing, it's hard. It's hard. And maybe with some things we do. It depends on the topic. It depends on the person. It depends on so many variables. But again, the point is that this would apply for family members that you have, for friends, for your colleagues. It applies to the workplace. If I know I'm doing my job, but someone says something and I immediately get defensive thinking they're wrong and I'm right, that's not going to get you anywhere. So keeping an open mind and going back to asking yourself these questions. Why do I feel a strong resistance? Do I know all the facts? Are my emotions influencing what I believe? Maybe I'm remembering something wrong. Do I believe something because I want it to be true? And putting aside my personal feelings, can I learn from this other perspective? And I think that's most important, is to learn from someone else's perspective. We know that a lot of information we get are from books and history and videos and research. Who writes those? People. People are the ones who make all of this, who document history. People are researching. And so it's really important that we understand and listen and take in people's perspectives, which helps us understand the full picture. And even if we try to understand, sometimes we're not going to get it 100%, but it gets us closer to filling in the gaps so we can paint a clearer picture than we had before. So again, this article was put out by Inc. This article, you can Google it. It's called How Emotionally Intelligent People Use the Rule of Rethinking to Think Like Scientists. I encourage you, take the time today. If you feel like you want to disagree on anything, you're feeling any conflicts with another person, try to think like a scientist and use this rule of rethinking to reframe your thoughts and try to understand their perspective. Take time to understand how you feel too.